There's a global trade war in the offing. Now, we have to factor in the possibility and a very, very high probability, I shouldn't say possibility any longer, of a global recession coming on the heels of a US recession.
Rahul Gandhi
is right. There's just no question about it. The fact of the matter is that this is a shock for every economy. So we can't be overly critical of our government in this situation. Now, there is no question about it that the Indian government will have to have a spine.
So, Mehrotra, but were we ill prepared? Because Trump has been talking about the tariff regime since
no one was prepared. No, I don't think we should be unfair to our own government. No one in the world was prepared for what he has done. Please try and appreciate that no one in the world was prepared. No one in the world could have been prepared for the madness that has struck America. This has never happened in the history of America. Donald Trump is being profoundly stupid even from the perspective of his own country.
Right.
If that was not the case, Neeluji, there would not be protests by ordinary Americans in 1,300 cities. This is unprecedented in the history of America. What is wrong with the current government strategy is that they are not focused enough on generating demand within our own country. Because jobs are not growing, therefore inequality is growing. Profits are rising while wages are not rising. That's not good for the growth, sustained growth of our economy. Now, these are failures of domestic policy. Tariffs are impacting only the goods exports of India. They're not impacting the services exports. There's no talk about services exports so far.
Right.
So the point here remains that we have to think about how we diversify our markets away from the United States.
Absolutely. Yes.
This is really the point. That's what called strategic thinking.
Hello and a warm welcome to HW News Network, your one-stop show, truth be told, for some engaging and thought-provoking conversation. In a dramatic start to the trading week, Indian benchmark indices witnessed a massive sell-off on Monday, that is April 7th, as fears of a global trade war triggered a steep fall in equities worldwide. Now, the BSE Sensex plummeted 3,379.19 points, or rather 4.48% to open at 71,985.50, while Nifty dropped 901.05 points, which is about 3.93% to 22,003, making their worst opening since March 2020. So it was almost like a bloodbath. It was a Black Monday, which everyone has been taking pot shots at on the social media. And in fact, if you look at the entire amount, it was 20 lakh crore which were wiped out as bears dominate the market. So we'll try and discuss this. And joining us this evening is renowned economist Santosh Mehrotra. So thank you so much for joining. Santosh Mehrotra is there with us this evening. So thank you so much for joining. And my first question to you, 22 lakh crore being wiped out from the market. And if you look at the early trading at that point of time, in 5 minutes, 19 lakh crore were wiped out. Now, is this a direct impact of Donald Trump's tariff regime?
Totally, it is. You see, it's not just that people that there is a risk of a trade war. There's a global trade war in the offing. Now, we have to factor in the possibility and a very, very high probability, I shouldn't say possibility any longer, of a global recession coming on the heels of a US recession. So no matter what we might be projecting for our own growth rate. The fact of the matter is we've just started a new financial year, and because this has come at the beginning of the financial year, we will have to hedge our bets significantly for the rest of the year, because almost certainly there is going to be turmoil in our markets, in all global capital markets, as it is happening in the US market. The US market is also continuing to tumble. Now, this is very different from a situation that prevailed in the early months of President Trump's first presidency. Although his approval ratings are again extremely poor, they are slightly better than they were in the early months for President Trump in 2017, when he came to power. But the point is that that just on Saturday evening, or Saturday the whole day, there were 1,300 protests in 1,300 cities across that country.
Yes.
Which speaks volumes for what at least half of the nation feels. And it's not that the MAGA people are not going to suffer the impact. So the point of the forthcoming inflation, because there's no question that prices of everything will rise in the United States. Cars will rise in any case, there is just no question about it. Partly because there will be a retaliation from sellers, from exporters of cars from Japan, from Europe. And the fact of the matter is that the US car manufacturers are going to raise their prices. What's going to be the sum and substance of all this at the end of it? That the US will see a recession. With a US recession will also come, because US is 25% of the global economy, will come a global shock, and all countries' exports are going to begin to fall. When exports fall, countries tend to, they import less.
Mehrotra, and I'm going to ask you some political questions, which are going to be very point blank as far as Modi's management of the economy is concerned. Now, what people are speaking on the social media, that this fall in the market could have been prevented had Prime Minister Modi spoken enough to Donald Trump when he went to United States recently. And I'm just looking at one tweet of Rahul Gandhi, which he has just tweeted a short while back, and I'm just going to read that out. He has written that Trump has blown the lid off the illusion. Reality is biting back. PM Modi is nowhere to be seen. India has to accept reality. We have no choice but to build a resilient, production-based economy that works for all Indians. This is what Rahul Gandhi has.
Rahul Gandhi is right. There's just no question about it. The fact of the matter is that this is a shock for every economy. So we can't be overly critical of our government in this situation. Now, there is no question about it that the Indian government will have to have a spine.
So, Mehrotra, but were we ill prepared? Because Trump has been talking about the tariff regime.
No one was prepared. No. I don't think we should be unfair to our own government. No one in the world was prepared for what he has done. Please try and appreciate that no one in the world was prepared. No one in the world could have been prepared for the madness that has struck America. This has never happened in the history of America. Now, we know that the management of the Indian economy has been very poor. There is no question about that. And we can go back to the Rahul Gandhi point. I have made that same argument for the last 7 or 8 years. So let me repeat some of that. And I've said this to you in my earlier discussions with you. You see, what does the Congress president, not the Congress president, but the Congress leader Mr. Gandhi mean when he speaks about a production economy? A production economy essentially means production of manufacturers. What he means is we can't be a services-driven economy. But what has been Piyush Goyal's argument in the last few days? At a startups big meeting That's exactly what he was saying, that there is practically no innovation taking place. The startups are all in the very low category of technology. It's not just that they're creating delivery boys. You see, there's nothing wrong in having delivery boys, but the point is, other non-farm jobs have not been growing. Why have other non-farm jobs not been growing? Because this government makes a lot of noise about manufacturing and Make in India and performance-linked incentive scheme for 14 sectors. But look at the outcome of production and manufacturing. That's really the point that I think everybody should be making, not just a leader of the Congress party. Every opposition party should be reminding the government that manufacturing contribution to gross value added in this country, Neelu ji, has come down from a 25-year average of 17% to 16% to 15 to 14 to 13. This was never the case. We are talking about a time what was prevailing in the 1960s, when we were a low-income country. We are not a low-income country. We can't on the one hand say, oh, we are the fourth largest, fifth largest economy in the world. We are the fastest growing, and yet hardly have any manufacturing. So on the one hand, manufacturing contribution to GVA has been falling. On the other hand, manufacturing jobs have fallen in absolute terms. So Mr. Gandhi is absolutely right. There's no question about that. But you see, this is a global shock that Mr. Trump has administered to his own economy. There is not one sensible economist in the United States who is able to justify what the kind of tariffs that Mr. Trump has imposed. I mean, there is a very simplistic and counterproductive logic in what Mr. Trump is doing. So the fact remains. So what is our approach in the negotiation with Mr. Trump going to be? Let us not be living in cloud cuckoo land, Neeluji, that we have a very strong hand to play. We are a weakling as an economy. We may pretend to be a very big economy, fastest growing. For the domestic consumer, you can keep selling this. But Trump is not going to buy this. Now, when you are negotiating, you will have to negotiate really hard. And we will see what comes out of the wash.
Mehrotra, you said that we have to negotiate hard. But have we seen Prime Minister Modi, or for that matter, Piyush Goyal, negotiating hard? They went to America, both of them, Prime Minister and Piyush Goyal. I don't know what they have negotiated, but if this is the kind of fallout which we see on the markets, who is to be blamed for this?
No, every market in the world is collapsing. The US market is collapsing. But your question is a legitimate one. Have we so far seen any hard bargaining on our side? Actually, my view on this matter is that they reduced tariffs in the budget on the 1st of February way too far in advance. They should not have done that. Had they avoided that and left this for, forgive me, the bottom line is that had we done these actions when we started to negotiate the bilateral agreement with the US government, that would have been superior. By contrast, we have been taking, placatory actions in advance. In other words, reducing the duty on bourbon whiskey, reducing the duty on Harley Davidson, etc., and on Tesla cars. We needn't have done that until we actually came down to the negotiation. Why did we, do the reduction in tariffs? Please understand, we need to reduce tariffs. Our tariffs are too high. They are bad for our own industry. Please appreciate this. Mr. Modi and his government have been increasing tariffs. They've taken the tariffs up in the last 7 or 8 years. We shouldn't have done that. We made a mistake. One of the reasons our manufacturing has not grown is precisely this. That's the point I was making. Because what happens? You see, please try and appreciate.
No, so are you justifying, sir? Are you justifying what Donald Trump is doing for his own country?
No. Please try and you are misreading what I am trying to say.
Okay.
Donald Trump is being profoundly stupid even from the perspective of his own country.
Right.
If that was not the case, Neeluji, there would not be protests by ordinary Americans in 1,300 cities. This is unprecedented in the history of America. The last time I recall, there were protests across the entire United States like this was during the Vietnam War in the mid-70s. Please try and appreciate the historic proportions of what Mr. Trump has brought upon his own country. It is a disaster he has brought upon his own country. And then not just the United States, but all countries in the world are going to suffer a decline in growth rates, and we will suffer as well. It is unfortunate, but it is true. Therefore, because this is such a crisis, it is a crisis. For our economy, it is a crisis because we are running out of our demographic dividend. We will soon become an aging society. Millions of young people are looking for jobs. They're not finding them. And they're not going to find them, in the services that have been growing. So 100% correct that production in manufacturing for the domestic market needs to grow, because please understand what's going to happen as a result of this. Let's look at the future. In the next 1 year or 2 years or so, our exports could very well fall overall. Because if global demand falls, because global growth falls, then inevitably our exports will be impacted. Please try and understand what is wrong with the current government strategy is that they are not focused enough on generating demand within our own country. Because jobs are not growing, therefore inequality is growing. Profits are rising while wages are not rising. That's not good for the sustained growth of our economy. Now, these are failures of domestic policy. If our market was if our producers were producing for the domestic market, then it would be different. Domestic companies are not investing. These are all failures of policy. They have nothing to do with Trump. They have nothing to do with tariff. We have now an additional problem. So let us not blame our government for the problems that have been brought upon us by Mr. Trump. Our problems were very big before the 2nd of April. They were very big. Mr. Gandhi is absolutely right. But let's not mix up two problems. That's what I'm trying to say to you.
Right. No, but Professor Mehrotra, if you look at what has happened since morning, 20 lakh crore have been wiped out as bears dominate the market. Then sectoral bloodbath, if you look at 12 nifty stocks, they have hit 52 weeks lows. Metals and IT, they lead the fall. Now, what do we conclude as? I mean, is this steep sell-off, does it not underscore the vulnerability of the Indian equities to the global shocks?
Yes, and absolutely. Inevitably that our capital market is integrated and there are vulnerabilities to international shocks. That we cannot prevent. So the sensible thing for Indian retail investors would be to not try and time the market. They might think, oh, let me buy now because the market is falling. The appropriate retail investor strategy always under any circumstances, whether the market is going up or the market is going down, is the following. You should have a systematic investment plan, because capital markets are very volatile in every country in the world. So retail investors, small investors, individual investors, as opposed to institutional investors, there are domestic institutional investors like SBI, like mutual funds, like the LIC, and then there are the foreign institutional. They don't, their staying power is much greater. Retail investors don't have. So one element of the strategy for retail investors has to be, don't try and time the market, use SIPs in your investment. Secondly, stay in the market for the long period. Don't think, I'll enter today, I will come out tomorrow. If you think like that, 93% of the people who are thinking like that are making losses because they are first-time investors. Please try and appreciate the innocence, the lack of understanding of capital markets of the first-time retail investor. The retail investor has entered in very large numbers in the last 4 or 5 years, and they are still learning how to play the market. They should ideally be trying to enter through mutual funds, whether it's debt funds or equity funds. It's stupid because you are a young, new investor,
right,
that you think you are going to make money without doing research. You make investments today, having heard some friends or family members advising you कि ये खरीद लो, वो बेच दो, आज ये खरीद लो, कल वो खरीद लो. This is stupidity beyond belief. No one should be doing this. If this continues, they will continue to get burnt. And who is getting burnt? Please try and appreciate the stocks that are losing are all in small and medium cap funds. Small and medium companies are losing big time, but they are the ones who go up when the market is going up fast. So retail investors say, चलो ये खरीद लेते हैं. अरे खरीद लेते हैं क्योंकि ये तो बड़ी तेजी से बढ़ते हैं. अरे आपको ये क्या नहीं मालूम है कि ये ही गिरते हैं, जब गिरते हैं तो ऊपर से ऐसे यूं गिरते हैं. बात ये है, मोटी बात लोगों को अब समझ में आना पड़ेगा कि आप अगर म्यूचुअल फंड्स में इन्वेस्ट करोगे, चाहे वो डेट फंड्स होंगे, चाहे वो और एसआईपी के थ्रू करोगे, चाहे वो इक्विटी फंड्स होंगे, उनकी रिसर्च होती है. वो बंबई में बैठे हुए हैं और वो सारे खिलाड़ियों को पहचानते हैं. आप अगर नहीं जानते इस खेल को तो आप क्यों अपना हाथ जला रहे हो? आपकी छोटी मोटी सेविंग्स है, आप अपना फिक्स डिपॉजिट में बैंक में रखो ना, चुप. या फिर आप डेट फंड में डालो, या आप फिर अगर इन्वेस्ट कर रहे हो तो फॉर द लॉन्ग पीरियड इन लार्ज कैप फंड्स, लार्ज कैप म्यूचुअल फंड्स की बात कर रहा हूं. फिर ये सब स्ट्रैटेजी होती है समझदार और अनुभवी लोगों की. People don't understand these things.
No, but what I want to understand from you is that the strategy which is adopted now by the Modi government, whether it is Piyush Goyal or whether it is Nirmala Sitharaman or whether it is Prime Minister Modi, what is the kind of approach they have taken to insulate our Indian markets from this kind of a shock? Are we prepared in any way?
No, I don't know. I'm not part of the government, so I don't know whether they have an approach or not. I mean, what we've agreed is that...
What does it look like? As an economist, what do you feel? How well are we prepared for this shock?
So far, no, I don't think so far we are prepared. I'm sorry to say that so far we haven't shown much degree of preparation.
Right.
That is not saying the same thing as, government should be prepared for a collapse in the market. The government couldn't do a damn thing about collapsing of the market. That's a ordinary, the traders, day traders who are playing the game. The government is not a big player in that game. The government should not be a player. I mean, the point is that they cannot control the market. Everyone must understand the government cannot do anything. There are two different things. You are talking about negotiating on the foreign trade, in the foreign trade area, with one government, which is the United States government.
Right.
We are not. That is having repercussions on our capital market through an international route. So there's nothing that the US government, the Indian government can do about it. Nothing. We shouldn't be blaming them for something about which they cannot do anything. What they should be doing is, of course, negotiating in a proper way, including, incorporating our interests and thinking strategically about how, if we are going to lose markets in the US, then how those same companies, how we will diversify away from the US. I mean, after all, the Chile president was here recently. The Chile president was saying something very important, which I've also been saying for a long time, that we should be increasing our exports and our trade relationship generally with Latin America. Our trade relationship with Latin America is very poor. So what are we doing about that? Those are the things that a strategic government which is wanting to increase its exports needs to think about, rather than, and of course, adopting the right policies so that domestically for manufacturing to grow, so that we are not so dependent upon our services exports. Because what's going to happen? Please try and appreciate what's about to happen in our services IT exports. Yes. Our services exports are not going to grow at the rate at which they were growing earlier. Foreign companies which have been coming up here to set up global capability centers are not going to come at the same rate as they were coming earlier. So our software exports and our services exports, because these IT exports account for 60% of our total services exports, and services export account for about 40% of our total exports. The remaining 60% is accounted for by goods. So the point is, these tariffs are impacting only the goods exports of India. They're not impacting the services exports. There's no talk about services exports so far.
Right.
So the point here remains that we have to think about how we diversify our markets away from the United States.
Absolutely. Yes.
This is really the point. That's what called strategic thinking.
Right. So this strategic thinking, can it be done by the Modi government? Will Nirmala Sitharaman do it? Will Piyush Goyal do it? Will Prime Minister Modi think of doing it? That's $1 million question. And we'll have to be glued to what is really happening on the market. But what we have seen is simply unprecedented. And people have been saying that, and they are remembering the 1987 bloodbath, which was seen in a single day. Those are the kind of memories which have got revived. And just go to the social media to analyze as to what has really happened today. Thank you so much, Professor Mehrotra, for joining on HW. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.